Welcome to the Private Practice Startup, where we inspire you from startup to mastery. We chat with entrepreneurs, experts in the mental health and business arenas, and successful private practitioners to give you the tools needed to make your dream practice a reality. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, and so much more. Here are your hosts, Dr. Kate Campbell and Katie Lemieux.
What's up, Startup Nation? We are back with another awesome episode of the Private Practice Startup Podcast. I'm Dr. Kate Campbell and here with my co-host.
Hey, everybody. It's Katie Lemieux.
Yes. And we are really excited about today's podcast with Joe Sanok from Practice of the Practice. This is actually our second time he's guest appearing. So, hey, Joe.
Hey, how's it going, ladies?
It's going great.
You could not have planned that better.
I know. It's so funny. We share a brain. We're in sync often. It's pretty funny. Yes.
Hilarious.
So before we dive into today's topic, we just want to let you guys know we had an awesome show last week with Allison Perrier from Abundance Practice Building. And she talked about 3 non-counseling ways counselors can increase their income. So if you haven't already listened to that podcast, make sure you go back there and check it out. We offered tons of practice building value bombs and ninja tips. And we're really excited to have Joe on today for the second time. His first episode with us was episode number 28. Yes, back in January 9th, I believe. And there he talked about creating a lifestyle business. So if you haven't heard that one, make sure you go back and listen to it. And today, Joe is going to be talking about the importance of slowing down in private practice, really as an entrepreneur, just as a human in general, but being able to slow down to really speed up and focus on what the most important goals are in life, personally and professionally. So before we dive into that topic, we just wanted to share with you guys a few giveaways. For first-time listeners, welcome. We're really glad to have you here. We've got a special gift for you. Make sure you visit theprivatepracticestartup.com, head over to our resources tab, and there you will find abundant resources, and in particular, the A to Z cheat sheet, the essentials for building your private practice. And then for anybody who's returning, welcome back. We want to invite you all to join our exclusive Private Practice Startup Facebook group. So make sure to find us there and let's dive in.
So as you guys know, Joe, and if you haven't known Joe yet, you want to definitely check out episode 28 and also check out Joe's podcast. Joe's been around for a while and he has really awesome resources and information to help you in your entrepreneurial journey in private practice. So Joe's a mental health counselor, speaker, business consultant, and podcaster. He's had the #1 podcast for counselors, the Practice of the Practice podcast. He's interviewed Pat Flynn, Lee Dumas, Chris Ducker, Rob Bell, Glennon, Doyle, Melton, and Lewis Howes. Joe's a rising star in the speaking world, and for sure he is. And he's very innovative and creative, and that's why we wanted to have him back on. Joe has also written for PsychCentral. He's been featured on the Huffington Post, Forbes, Good Magazine, Reader's Digest, Bustle, and Yahoo News. He's also a keynote speaker, author of 5 books, and is a top consultant. So, like Kate said, welcome, Joe, again. We are so excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be back on the show. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, and you have like the latest and greatest, coolest thing coming up, and we just really love watching you and what you're up to. And, you know, I think one of the great things about us practice building folks is that we're all really supportive of each other. You know, even though how everyone has awesome ideas and it just gets you sparked and creative and you want to kind of jump in, you know, it's so cool just to be able to support each other.
Yeah, and I think that oftentimes, whether it's in counseling or consulting or whatever you're working on, people have this kind of fear of being found out and like, oh, what am I going to contribute? But it's like if you let your own personality come out and if you let your own quirks come out, people are going to follow you that are interested in you as a person. And if that helps them out in their businesses, if that helps them out in counseling, that's great. But you know, so often I think we worry about, oh, if I say the same thing as other people, then like what's going to happen? But honestly, there's so many different ways that you're like, you know, the Kate and Katies of the world are going to do things differently than I'm going to view the world. And we're going to each have our own unique spin on it. So even just like hearing your A to Z checklist, I'm like, why didn't I think of that? That's a great idea.
Well, thank you.
It's so funny. Yeah, because I mean, we really truly believe in collaboration. We don't see it as competition. Everybody's got their own unique spin on it. And I have to ring the little cowbell because it's all about authenticity, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think it's one of those things where, you know, if you take something you learn and you say, how does this apply to my counseling practice? How does this apply to my consulting work? How do I make it my own and really like the things I'm passionate about and go after those? That's going to make you stand out because it's going to come across as innovative because you're being your true self. And I can never compete directly with Kate and Katie because you are unique. You're your own people. The way you would do a podcast is different than I would. And if you tried to copy me or I tried to copy you, it would come across as inauthentic and like you weren't being true to yourself. And so I think starting with the fact that we all are unique and just go after things and really try to create new and innovative things that to you make sense.
For sure. And, as we get into your topic about Slow Down School, I want to kind of just acknowledge you because ever since we recorded your podcast, I think we recorded it back, I think in the fall or close to the holidays or something like that. And it was released in January. And, you really talked about lifestyle business. And of course, this is something that I've known about, but not really applied. And really ever since the beginning of the year, I've been revamping my entire life and my business. I'm actually not working on the weekends anymore. Every other Thursday, I know, right? That's like a big win. Every other Thursday I have off, or at least have another day off during the week. And, it's changing my life and allows me to focus on other things. Sometimes I actually take a break and focus on myself, but sometimes, I reinvest my time and energy in learning about real estate or other things that are going to build wealth and abundance. So we're really excited to learn more about Slow Down School. I'm so excited that we've actually partnered with Joe to kind of get the word out about Slow Down School and what he's up to. And we'll talk a little bit more about the details and everything a little bit later in regards to that. But, Joe, how did you get the idea about Slow Down School?
Yeah, it's funny because last episode you guys talked to Allison Career, and it was actually while my wife and I were flying down to Asheville to put on the conference Brew Your Practice that Jane Carter, Allison, and I put on last year. And we were in the Detroit airport, and my wife and I were walking, and she had just bought one of those adult coloring books. And we were kind of just joking as we were, we didn't have our kids, so obviously we were less stressed as we flew. And I said to her, like, wouldn't it be fun if there was like a conference where like it was just like coloring books and Play-Doh? And we just like kind of went on this, like, we were just kind of joking around, like, oh yeah, entrepreneurs like me need to slow down. She's like, and introverts like me need to color more. And it was like this joke. And like we oftentimes will just brainstorm just funny things and situations, as you do with people that you're close to. And then on that flight from Detroit down to Asheville, in typical style, Christina fell asleep and took a nap, and I pulled out my notebook and sketched out this like big idea for a conference. And the idea was that it would be a place where instead of showing up at the conference with all the stress that you bring from your private practice, that you actually take a little bit of time to slow down first, and then you really can focus in because you have so much clarity because you've taken time to actually slow down to focus in on the biggest, most profitable, biggest return on investment of your time things that you need to be doing in your practice and eliminate all those other things so that you can zero in on those things that are going to give you the biggest bang for your buck.
And it's crazy when we do take the time to slow down, we actually are more productive and more clear coming out the gate rather than trying to manage all the little things that we're just constantly trying to master with our time and figure out that, like checking email 20 times a day and all those things that really don't matter. And I know for myself, when I actually meditate or have enough time to like really meditate, the things that come into meditation are just so cool, like things I wouldn't have thought of or ideas. And it's so important to really slow down. And I mean, we're teaching our clients these things all the time and we suck at applying them. Sometimes, not all of us, but some of us. I'll speak for myself, but I'm getting way better at that, obviously.
Well, and I think that part of it is that, there's people that are just starting a practice, and right now isn't the time to slow down. And so thinking about like the different phases of practice is really important. There's that startup phase when you're just getting things going. You really want to just attract your ideal client and you want to fill up your ideal practice. And then that next phase, kind of after about $50,000 or so, is that growth phase where you're looking at how do I really fill up the practice with my ideal client? Maybe start to add a clinician or two, take a couple things off of my plate, whether that's scheduling or the phones. You've probably hustled to get to that 50K. And then to get to that 100K, you've got to start asking yourself more and more, what can I take off my plate? And then over that 100K is where you really start looking at scaling your practice. How do you add more clinicians? How do you brutally outsource things off of your plate? So that really the things that you do are the things that only you can do. And I think that oftentimes when people are in that startup phase, when they're brand spanking new, it's like, I'm not ready to slow down. I want to run. I want to hustle. I want to work on the weekends. I want to have a full practice. And that's good. That's where you need to be at that point. But you got to view that as a chapter in a larger book. That can't be what sustains you. Because if you get to that 50,000 and that's the lifestyle you've created for yourself, you've got to have an exit plan where you can start to take things off of your plate, train other people to do it. Otherwise, you're one of the highest paid people that are answering the phones. You're one of the highest paid people that are scheduling calls. You're the highest paid web designer if you're getting $150 or $200 a session. And so I think as long as you understand what phase you're in, and then appropriately how do you start to implement slowing down, that's where I think people oftentimes push back. And if they understand where they're at, it makes it a lot easier to understand what slowing down looks like during each of those three phases.
I'm glad you really defined that. I think that's really helpful. And so just kind of going off of that, why is it important to slow down and also share with us your own experience of why it's been important for you to slow down?
Yeah, I remember in 2006, I had a job at Community Mental Health, and I also was working at a group practice as just a practitioner, as a 1099 there. And at the time, I took insurance, and I was applying for all these insurances. And, as often happens, like at the beginning, you're like networking and trying to meet all these people. And I remember this moment on the couch. We were in this small apartment. My wife was in grad school. I was working at CMH 40 hours a week and then trying to get more clinician time over at this group practice. And in like 1 week time, I went from having one client to having, I think, 6 or 7. And it like all hit, which was exciting. But then I remember just like breaking down, crying to my wife because it was like so much pressure and I want to help these people. And we all have these moments when we've pushed really hard. It might be that we wanted to get higher rankings on our website. We're like trying to rank in SEO, or we're just trying to get more calls coming in. And then it all comes in and you're like, oh my word, like this is way too much work for me. What have I done to myself? And that's where if we don't then recognize, okay, I now need to set some boundaries to keep this progress going, because you don't want to lose money from all that time that you spent. You don't want to lose clients, but to set clear boundaries is really important. And so over time, I learned that I had to set some very clear boundaries. So a couple of years later, what that looked like was when my wife got pregnant, we started taking a water aerobics class together. And it was on a Monday and Wednesday. And we were with all these like 50, 60, and 70-year-old women. And then it was me and my wife. And it was so much fun. And I'm like doing these water aerobics. And I was like, I'm so out of shape compared to these 70-year-old women. But what it forced me to do was every Tuesday and Thursday, I would do my private practice in the evening after my full-time job. And I realized that my practice didn't fall apart. I thought people were going to be really upset that I didn't do Monday through Thursday anymore. And at each step, when I started taking Fridays off or taking Mondays off or all these different ways that I have kind of made my schedule more and more in line with what kind of lifestyle I wanted to live, I realized that the world didn't fall apart. And in fact, I became more valuable then to my clients and was able to charge more as a result of those slowing down things.
I'm glad you say that 100%, because what I've found, especially in this year myself, as I've redefined and restructured my own schedule, I'm consistently as busy, if not busier. For me, being full is 15 to 18 clients. Ever since the beginning of the year, I've had that, but I've been able to structure it in a way that I'm able to maximize my time. I haven't had a decrease in clients. And so, we have all those kind of fears that bubble up in the way, but I love that you share your own experience and actually what's true and valuable. And when we do kind of take control of our own time and slow down and really take time to work on our business. And that's really the thinking about all of the business and the planning and taking time off and doing the things that are really rejuvenating. The results they're kind of like counterintuitive, right? It's like we worry like, oh my gosh, like you said is, well, if I don't work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm not going to have any clients. But, time and time again, I hear the results. I've seen my own results. I know Kate has, is that usually the opposite can be true.
Yeah, and I think that what often happens is that in order to slow down, you have to do a lot of things that you should have been doing already for your business. So just taking, for example, my daughter had a 2-week spring break. And so for the first half of that, we drove around Lake Michigan, went through the Upper Peninsula, then met up with some friends in Chicago. And I told my assistant, who's been checking my email, that I really didn't want to hear from her unless it was an emergency or it was something she really couldn't handle. And I got like 3 texts over that entire week. And when I came back, I think there was 10 emails I had to address of the probably 400 that came in while I was gone. And then my wife and I, we left and we went to Mexico for 5 days, just the two of us. And I again told my assistant, like, you're going to get a bonus if I don't hear from you. And she did an amazing job. I think I had 20 emails that I had to respond to out of the, several hundred that came in while I was gone. And so let's reverse engineer that. What does it take for me to have somebody else check my email? Well, first, it means I have to have someone that's really competent And even before that, I have to know what I want. And so I have to start keeping track of the types of emails that come in. So in this type of email, this is the kind of response that I do. In this type of email, this is the kind of response. Do I have her respond as herself using my email or as me? Like, that's a big ethical question. Of course, you want to have it be clear when it's not Joe Sanok responding. And so being able to say, here's the types of emails that someone's going to respond to. Here's how they start so that I know that I'm going to go in and I have to respond to that. What kinds of things does she need to text me and say, this is an emergency, you need to answer this right now? And so being able to understand what you want out of an assistant allows me then to slow down. But if I just disappeared for 2 weeks, like that would crazily hurt my bottom line. And it would make it so that when I came back, I had hundreds, if not 1,000 emails I had to work through. And so I'd have days off of work. And so a lot of times people hear slow down. They're like, that's easy for you. But it takes a lot of work to get to that point where you can really start to outsource things to other people in order to free up your time to do just the things that only you can do.
I can remember when I was gearing up or really preparing to take maternity leave. And that was, my son just turned 2 last week, actually. Time is flying. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was one of the things that really spurred me to stepping back even more from the business, going from the transition from, just being a married person to being a married person with a child and realizing like, hey, I really want my lifestyle to look different. And that transformed a lot of things. But having my assistant at that period of time really take care of just about everything. I think she contacted me very minimally for at least the first month. And I was like, wow, I don't have to do everything with my business and it still runs beautifully. So having somebody that you really trust and you train and you prepare them for that really does allow you to step back, and it really transformed things for me. It's never been the same since in a really good way.
Yeah, and I think that when you kind of get into those habits where you start to set those boundaries. So for me, when I had a full-time job as I was growing mental wellness counseling and practice of the practice, it was from Friday evening until Sunday afternoon, I didn't check email. And at that point, I didn't have an assistant checking it. And so those really small things that give you a kind of clear boundary with your family and your friends as to when are you, work Joe and when are you family Joe, for me was really important. And what often happens, though, is you go through these different kind of phases of slowing down. For me, it's every weekend still. I have kind of this purging phase where I naturally want to go check email or I want to go check social media. And I'm like, wait a second. Like, no, it's the weekend. It's not time to do that. And then I move into some practices. So lately I've been reading books that aren't business books. So books that are just kind of entertaining for me. And so that gives me something to do in addition to hanging out with my 2 daughters and going for hikes and playing games with friends. Those are all things that are practices that help me have boundaries around that time. And then the last kind of phase of that is presence, that we find that we really become more present in that moment. And then that's when we see these sparks of innovation start to come, when you're just in the moment, you're like, oh my gosh, I could do this. And it actually speeds things up for you to be able to reach those goals for your practice.
So Joe, tell us a little bit about Slow Down School. What can people expect?
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So people are coming into Traverse City, Michigan, which is in northern Michigan. We're going to be right on the waters of Lake Michigan. There's this awesome private school up here that we've rented, and it's on a river and on Lake Michigan. So it starts on Sunday night, and so that's going to be the 30th of July. And the VIPs, so the first, I think we have 5 tickets left for the VIPs. We're going to all have dinner together, and then there's going to be a happy hour kickoff after that. And then on Monday and Tuesday, we're going to be slowing down. So Monday, we're going to go for hikes. We're going to be hanging out. We're going to have a campfire. We're going to allow ourselves to really regroup in a lot of ways so that we can kind of till up that soil to help us have those great ideas flourish. On Tuesday, it's going to be more of a practice day. So Muse, the biofeedback headband, they're going to have a Muse lounge. We're going to have yoga. We're going to have massage. And it's going to really be a day of like, let's have some practices that help us be centered and ready to amp it up for the rest of the week. And then on Wednesday morning, we're going to really start to help foster those sparks of innovation, to think creatively, do that kind of out-of-the-box thinking that I love doing, to help each other come up with different ways that we can think about not just our private practices, but things that are outside of our private practice as well. So big ideas like a podcast, an e-course, consulting, things that go beyond just bringing in revenue through having clients in your practice. And then in the afternoon of Wednesday, the VIPs are going to get to do 1-minute videos with Kupla Media. They're going to be there doing videos videos either for your private practice or it could be for kind of your big idea. And then Thursday and Friday, we're going to have group consulting in the morning where we're going to be diving deep into these ideas, planning, breaking up into smaller groups, doing hot seats. And then in the afternoon, we're going to go wine tasting together.
Wow. Sounds like an action-packed and relaxing week all at the same time. And for those of you who haven't been to Northern Michigan, let me just tell you, we go up there with my family every year for 2 weeks in August. And we're about an hour and a half away from where Joe lives in Traverse City. And it's absolutely stunning up there. It's just absolutely beautiful. So I can just visualize what you're talking about. And it sounds like such an amazing experience.
Yeah, and Kelly Higdon's going to be here too from Zinni Me, so she's going to be helping with the consulting. We're right on the edge of the Sleeping Bear Sand Dunes National Park, and so people are going to be surrounded by this beautiful national park while they're slowing down and also speeding up their businesses.
So, Joe, what do you think what will people gain? What will they come to discover by slowing down? What will be available to them?
Yeah, I think there's a number of different things that people gain from coming to Slow Down School. Part of it is I hope that they recognize the need for ongoing habits of slowing down. We always hear in famous podcasters, you got to hustle more and you got to do this more, and you hear more. And there's part of the time we do need to do that. But we also do need to kind of retract and reflect on what we want to get out of our practices and out of our big ideas. And so I would say that developing kind of ongoing habits will be part of the outcomes from it. As well, the people that have already signed up are just people that are rocking out private practice and have these big ideas. People like Dr. Jeremy Sharp, who launched the Testing Psychology podcast, other people that are really kind of rising stars in not just the consulting world, but in the counseling world that are going after these really big ideas. And so to be a part of that cohort of people that have big ideas that go beyond just their private practice, but really are going to change the field of counseling and the field of helping people. So I would say being a part of that cohort. And then also the relational side to me is so important, to be able to hang out in person, to be able to think through ideas, have a clear plan for what your big idea is, and then be able to do that in community afterward is so important.
And I mean, it's so cool to be able to hang out with you and even just like kind of pick your brain, and Kelly's going to be there. And like you said, there's just going to be this great synergy of not only practice building folks, but really people who are rocking it out and counseling. And so it's almost like a mastermind. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's like last year I did a shorter version of this. It was a 2-day thing called Pinot in Practice, where it was just kind of the wine tasting and consulting. And it was awesome because, we'd be doing wine tasting, but I said to the group, I view myself as being on right now. And so come to me with your questions, like write them down. And it was like rapid fire. And I'd be like, all right, now you go with this person and go work on this with your glass of wine and come up with this idea. And you guys go sketch out some blog posts. And it was awesome to see how much progress came out of just those 2 days. So now thinking about if we slowed down and had even more focus over 5 days, I'm just so excited to see what the results are going to be for people.
And we're excited for you and everyone who's going to attend. And speaking of that, we're really just excited about what you're doing and really are a huge supporter and fan of you. And so because of that, we've actually partnered with Joe in regards to Slow Down School. So if you guys are interested in it, you want to go to practiceofthepractice.com/startup. You'll actually get $100 off the conference. And because we're so inspired by Joe, we love helping and we're just committed to really just supporting professionals in our community, is that Kate and I are actually going to provide a 30-minute free consultation if you do sign up for the conference. And remember, this is a 5-day conference. Joe had shared all of the amazing things that are going to occur. And really, I think the most amazing thing is, what you guys will gain from it and kind of, just kind of set you straight on your own path and what you'll create. And of course, we want to totally hear what you guys have gotten out of that. So like you said, there's the business building, there's the wine tasting, and just really joining a cohort of really awesome and amazing people to just really take your ideas to the next level. That's huge. So we hope you guys take advantage of this. Before we got on recording with Joe, we had said, hey, are you going to offer this again? And who knows? He might not. So if this is your one and only chance, don't regret it. Make sure you go get connected and really get your practice to the next level. So Joe, we just so wanted to thank you for being with us again, and really just being able to share a little bit about Slow Down School and what people will get. And of course, it's all about the experience. So if you haven't registered yet or you're thinking about it, like I said, you don't want to miss out on that.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun, and it's all inclusive. It includes all of the food and lodging and everything as part of the price. Last year when we did it, Traverse City is such a tourist town. People were paying $300 or $400 a night for their hotel room,
Wow.
and I'm like, that's just going to be cost prohibitive for most people. And so by renting out this beautiful place on the water, it's kept the cost down for people.
Right. And so what are the dates again, Joe?
Yeah, so it's going to be July 30th, which is Sunday. It kicks off dinner for the VIPs and then the happy hour afterward for everybody else. And it goes till the next Saturday, which is August 5th.
And so that is of 2017, just in case you're listening to this podcast in the future.
Yes, exactly.
Funny to talk about the future now. But listen, Startup Nation, like I said, if this is of interest, we recommend that you take action and really get things started. But we wanted to thank you for being on the podcast with us today. And Joe, as returning back for a second round, we really appreciate that. We want to make sure that you tune in next week for next podcast, which is Susan Block, a personal friend and colleague, on how to transition from full-time work to full-time practice. You will definitely want to check that out. Don't forget to check out the show notes page for the tips, resources, giveaways, and the link to sign up for Joe's Slowdown School. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, share with friends and colleagues. And Startup Nation, we hope you have an amazing day, and thank you so much for allowing us to continue to inspire you from startup to mastery.
Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.